I'm sitting here being interviewed by Istvan, who was our realtor recently on our sale of a house that we owned for 27 and a half years on Bel Ann Court. My wife and I hired Istvan after about a 15-minute interview, and the circumstances were we had interviewed another realtor, and we wanted to go a different direction. So I knew Istvan to be a friend of someone down the street, and I gave him a call, and he came over within, I would say, 25 minutes. And when he showed up, he had a brochure tailored to our house. I mean, obviously some of the information was canned, but he had comparables to our house, which was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and low-key style. The interview went great. We discussed his pricing philosophy. We discussed his staging philosophy. I told him that we had been working to prepare the house for 6 to 8 months, so we were ready to put the house on the market. The other realtor wanted to wait 3 weeks and do some things that I thought were completely unnecessary. And Istvan, I could tell right away, he's a great listener. He's smart. He knows real estate. He tailors his approach to what his clients want to do. I think he saw that that we had gone through this process before. We were familiar with basically the steps that are taken. And the first step, obviously, these days is the whole issue of staging. And I had been through the staging issue in the sale of the house I grew up in the Berkeley Hills with my siblings. And we had a fairly spirited discussion / disagreement on the whole staging issue. In that case, it was, we were trying to identify what our parents would have wanted. How would they have wanted us to market the house that we were raised in? And my approach then and my approach on our house was, we're going to thin out, and Istvan actually endorsed this based on our preferences, which impressed us, which was to basically thin out our existing furniture, and that's what we did. We loaded up our garage. We kept the things that we had used over the course of 27 years. We kept a quilt that my wife had made in the living room. It was a beautiful quilt. The other realtor told us to take it down, which I wasn't about to do. And Istvan took us room by room with suggestions on how we could thin out so that the house presented itself in a way that appeared to be larger because there was fewer things in each room. So we really appreciated Istvan's approach to the whole staging process, and he estimated it would take a day or two to finish staging it with our own furniture in the manner that I just described. And Istvan was correct. We had it essentially done in 2 days. Istvan asked me when I wanted to list our house, and I said immediately. And I wasn't going to spend another dime to fix it up because, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we had essentially been working for 6 to 8 months to get to this point. And so Istvan asked me, I said, how soon can you list it? And he said, tomorrow. So the next day, sure enough, Istvan listed it. He put a sign, very nice looking sign of Istvan and his wife, the international team, I think it said, words to that effect. And it was a very, very presentable sign, not gaudy, low key, but it had the number. And in addition, Istvan put us on multiple listing, which, let's face it, in this market today, multiple listings sold the house, in addition to the fact that the house was, there was very low inventory in our city at the time, which made the first realtor that we interviewed, her approach potentially disastrous, because the sooner we got the house listed, I felt that the sooner we would sell. And we had the issue of potentially higher interest rates, and the market these days can change overnight. So Istvan put together a video and a flyer basically on no notice at all. He took pictures of every room in the house. I took a video, and he did everything perfect, exactly, you know, the way he basically conformed, in his style is low-key, efficient, professional. You send him a text or an email, he responds immediately. If there's something that, you know, you share your concerns with him, there was never any doubt that would our concern be shared, you know, with potential buyers. I always knew it would not be. You know, just strategy type things as you went along. And he was very particular that in the disclosure process, which I was impressed with. My background, I'm used to being put in a position where truthfulness is the essence of a transaction, and Istvan absolutely endorsed, and that's the way he goes about his business. He's honest. He came up with a calculation as to what the house should list for. He predicted that the house would actually sell for more than it was listed for, which turned out to be true. We had 5 or 6 offers within 4 or 5 days. He conducted an open house. We listed the property on a Thursday. He had open house that Saturday and Sunday. And he introduced us to this process called DocuSign, which I had not used before. And essentially it makes it easy as you go along to acknowledge receipt of various documents, and also to sign documents or initial our receipt of them. So if I had to summarize the things that make Istvan such a valuable realtor for us, and I think for anyone interested in an honest professional realtor, I would say, number 1, he knows his business. 2, he tailors the approach on each listing by the client and by the house. You know, it's not one size fits all. It's his approach was tailored to our house and the approach that we wanted to take in selling our house. And so that's number 1. Number 2, throughout the process, his efficiency was incredible. The open house was phenomenal. There was over 50 people each day of the open house, and he had a process that he put in place where if the person showed up with a realtor, they left a business card for Istvan to follow up. And although we did not set a deadline for offers per se initially, it was clear from Istvan's communication with persons from the open house primarily that were interested in the house, that they knew, and Istvan knew, that this house was going to sell in a matter of days. And without even requesting this, the offers that did come in came in with they were pre-approved by a bank, and they came in with a cover letter addressed to my wife Joanne and I, which turned out to be really a key component of the offer process from my standpoint, because those letters really gave us insight on what type of person, the qualities that buyer exhibited in that letter. Little things like, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Bevan," or "Dear Joanne and George," as opposed to "Dear Seller." So, and and I was shocked by the letters that, and I had been familiar with the letters, as I mentioned earlier, selling my parents' home that we grew up in the Berkeley Hills, that a letter came in from the person actually that ultimately bought the house. The letter actually I thought was completely disingenuous. It just didn't ring true. And the letters that came in on these offers, I felt they were all good letters. It was a tough choice for us to make. And ultimately, our choice was made easy by the fact that the highest bidder separated themselves. So really, in all other respects, it was an easy decision on our part, which I was thankful for. Once the offer came in, Istvan knew exactly what to do. Within the next day, once we accepted the offer, the next day, or I think maybe 2 or 3 days later, Istvan had already contacted a title company and established escrow. It was a 30-day escrow, and you know, I'm a bit of a worrywart, and along the way, Istvan said, hey, don't worry about it, this is going to work out, whatever the issue was. He had a list of contacts, for example, home inspection, termite, and those contacts turned out to be very valuable because although I had some of those things in mind, it just made it so easy to set up those things given the short fuse. And actually our escrow did close, I think, on the 29th day instead of the 30th day. The buyer, I believe that Istvan's personality, which is easy to enjoy, and the way he goes about his business, he established an immediate rapport with the buyer, whose father actually was the realtor. And it just made it easy when there was total communication between us, Istvan, and as it turned out, we were communicating directly with the buyer, realtor slash dad, about all kinds of issues. And when actually my boys had recommended that we get an inspection as soon as we listed the property, but given the short fuse that we had and the short interval between hiring Istvan, our desire to get the property listed as soon as possible, and when these offers came in, we really didn't have an opportunity to get an inspection on our own. But it didn't matter because the inspection that came in, there were 5 or 6 things on the inspection. My approach to the inspection was to fix them all. I didn't, there's Schedule 1, Schedule 2, and so forth, and maybe other sellers would take a different approach than I did, but my attitude was, if we're going to sell this house, we're proud of it, I'm going to fix all these things and put us in the best position possible with respect to the seller. And Istvan did everything that made that process easy. And it turned out that the seller had no issue whatsoever with anything, and I think appreciated our approach to things, which was a direct result of the approach that Istvan took to everything, which was total cooperation, total communication, honesty, professionalism, stay within our deadlines, and do whatever is necessary to make sure this was a smooth transaction. And one of the things that was most impressive was the day that we went down to the title company to sign. My wife and I went down there. We were a little late, about 10 or 15 minutes. They were waiting for us, and we got there and Istvan was sick. He sounded terrible, and I was impressed that his loyalty extended to going down to the title company even when he didn't feel well. So in summary, for Istvan, he made it clear it wasn't about the commission. Obviously, he's getting paid to do what he did, but he put our interests first, and he put the way we wanted to sell the house first, and everything else was secondary. And he's associated with a good real estate firm that has the services necessary to list the house promptly, handle closing, handle the offer and acceptance process, handle counter offers, which we did have. We had a backup offer. I wasn't really, I was familiar with the whole backup offer procedure, but not the actual paperwork. So Istvan did an initial draft. I reviewed the drafts, and in most cases didn't make any changes. And so the takeaway from this is that Istvan made the sale. Bottom line is we sold this house in 5 days. We got more than we asked for in the asking price, and he was able to articulate his selling philosophy. I know that he has some expertise in staging, and his staging approach actually was perfectly in line with what we wanted to do. I know I've covered staging already, but we did not spend a single dime on staging. Whereas when we sold my parents' house, I think we spent maybe $2,500 or $3,000 on staging, which, you know, it turned out to be okay. We sort of had a hybrid. You know, some of the stuff from my parents and some of the stuff was out of a warehouse. But when you have lived in a house for 27 and a half years and you have some furniture and things that you really like, you know, and you're proud of, you want your house to be listed and shown as you lived in it, not the way someone else lived with the furniture that came out of a warehouse. And so on balance, I would recommend Istvan to anybody that needs a realtor. And if we were to sell a house again, I wouldn't hesitate to hire Istvan. I give him the highest recommendation and have the highest regard for him as a person and as a realtor. So that's how I feel about it.